Kia ora team, it's me, the presenter. How are you doing? I'm sure you're doing pretty well. Look, today we're going to have a look at some of the basics of Microsoft Word. Word. Sorry, that was pretty bad. I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to do a few things, alright? So, let's crack into it and I'll explain what we're doing along the way. So, we're going to have a look at doing a few basic tasks, alright? So, a little bit of file management and a little bit of document formatting and file management to begin with. And then we'll get into some more sort of functionality of Microsoft Word or whatever word processor you're using, really. You may not be using Microsoft Word at your training organization, but that's okay, because all word processors have very similar functionalities. Sorry, I just tried to say those two words at the exact same time. Didn't really work. Alright, so what we'll have a look at is document creation. So what we want to do is we want to open our word processor. Alright, now this can either be found in your file structure, opening up the programs there and finding it, or if you're like me, you've pinned it to your toolbar. So I'm going to go ahead, double click it, and we open up onto this page here if you're using Word 16. Here we have a whole bunch of templates up the top. We've got like resume templates, cover letter templates. What I'm going to do is just open a blank document. And here we have a blank document in Microsoft Word. Now, we've got the file open, but it's not saved anywhere, okay? So we haven't really created the document yet. We're sort of halfway there. So what we want to do is, I'm going to call this document. In order to create a file, we actually have to save it. So I'm going to go into File. I'm going to go Save As. Go into Browse. So this is where you can browse your file tree of where you want to save it. I want to go into 111 Observation. And I'm going to save it as document. Okay, so now we've just saved that document. We've created the document and saved the file. That's nice and easy. Before we get into the use of Microsoft Word, I just want to have a look at a few other skills, okay, that we need just in terms of file management. Alright, so I'm going to have a look at renaming the file. We've already named the file when we were saving it. We called it document, but we can rename it. Okay, we can store it in different ways. I also want to have a look at retrieving it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close my document. And we do that just on the top right hand corner. There's a little X. Alright, so that's how you close it. You can restore it down, you can minimize the document so you can see the rest of the screen, but that hasn't closed it. It just comes straight back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out. Now, let's say I want to have a look at my document again. I've got some changes that I want to make, I want to put like a cool picture in there or something, maybe a meme. Well, I've got to find it again. Now, this is where good file management techniques come in handy. So, I open up my Documents folder, and I can see, clearly labelled, is my 111 Observation folder. So if I double click on that, I can see my document file. Awesome. That's how you retrieve a file. And that's why it's such a good idea to have clearly marked folders, guys. It's just so you can keep a track of everything and all of your documents are going to be easily found. Now, let's say I wanted to rename my document, alright? I could go File, Save As, and type in a different name. Or I could right click on my file in my Documents folder, scroll down to rename. Hopefully you can see that. There you go. And it comes up with this. This means that I can give it a new name. I'm going to call it Matthew, because every good file needs a name. But that's not really a good name for this document, is it? Because this document has nothing to do with the name Matthew. When you're naming your files, you really want to give your file a name that lets you know the contents, the data, the information of that file. Now, I'm doing this, I'm playing with this document as part of the 111 workbook, alright? And it's being used on a film. So if I ever wanted to go back to this document, I'd remember that it was part of this film that I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name that corresponds with that. I'm going to go 111 film, and it's the example document. So example doc. This means that it's going to be easy for me to find this file because it's in a good folder structure and it has an appropriate name, alright? I haven't named it something ridiculous, and I haven't named it something that doesn't really correspond to the information that's in the document. So this is good. This is a good thing. Alrighty team, what I've done is I've opened up the workbook and I'm going to use it to exemplify a few handy word tricks, okay? Now, first what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through this toolbar up the top, okay? Here, we've got the Home tab. Here is where we can play with the font format, okay? We can play with the paragraph format. We can do all sorts of nifty things, okay? So let's start with the font. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down, find some font. I'm going to highlight that font. Now, text manipulation is really quite cool. We can bold the text, make it bold. Okay, this is really good for headings and stuff. We can put it in italics. You can see how that's changing the text there, that gives it a bit of a lean. Italics is really good for extra information, right? We can also underline the text. You can see that it's become underlined. Those are really quite cool, okay? Underlining is quite handy if you want to make something stand out. You can also, by clicking on the down arrow, give your underline different appearances. So you can have the double line. You can change the color of your underline. You can make it a nice mauve. There's nothing wrong with a nice mauve. Alright? And of course, you don't actually need to highlight and go through these buttons to do all of these. You can actually use keyboard shortcuts to do all of this stuff. So making a piece of text bold is just Control B. Italics is Control I. Underline is Control U. We can also change the font of our text. So what I've got here is I've got Open Dyslexic, but we can change that to whatever we like. Let's say we change it to Algerian. You can see now that we've got a different font there. When you're typing up documents and all that sort of thing, it's usually best just to stick with your tried and true fonts such as Calibri or Times New Roman. Arial is also good. I quite like a good Arial font. You can increase the size of your font. You can make your font a bit smaller, alright? You can highlight your font. Really good if you're studying and you're trying to highlight important information. You can change the color of your font. Let's give it a nice dark orange, maybe. Yeah, there you go. So that's one way of really manipulating your text. Over in our paragraph section here, this is where you can play with how your paragraph looks, okay? Now let's say we want to make some bullet points. Just highlight whatever you want to do or want bullet pointed, and you click on the bullet points here. That's nice and easy. You can also change the format of your bullets. Make them little ticks, easy as. You can change them into numbers as well. That's pretty handy. Now, we've got this cool feature here, alright? And it's the orientation of your text, the alignment. So text is usually left aligned. But it can also be centered, right aligned, and justified. Now, left aligned or justified is usually the way that you want to go when you're creating professional documents. Justified means that the text fills the page up to your margins, alright? We can also play with our line spacing, alright? So how much space is in between our lines of text? Single spaced is, it doesn't give you a lot of space, but if you go double spaced, you see there's now quite a lot of space between the text. I quite like to go with 1.15. It makes it a lot easier to read, okay? There's a lot of separation between the text, but it also doesn't take up too much space. So it's sort of a happy medium between easy to read and not taking up that much space at all. We also have the option of highlighting entire paragraphs. We also have the Insert tab. This is where you can insert blank pages into your document. You can put in tables. You can insert pictures and shapes and all that sort of thing. You can insert films, okay? So you can embed a film directly into the document, or you can just paste a link in there. If we move along this way, we can insert comments, headers and footers, which are quite good. You can put in page numbers, okay? So you'll notice that the workbook already has its own page number, but we could change that. We could change it so it's centered. And there you go. So page numbers are quite great. The Design tab. And the Design tab sort of controls the aesthetics of your document. You can change the theme quite easily just by clicking the down arrow. You can see that it's changing the color and the scheme of it all. This is also where you'd put in, your page borders. So if we scroll across to the right hand side, we see page borders. So you'd click on your page border and it brings up options for your page borders. Nice and easy. The next tab we're going to have a look at is the Layout tab. Now, for this workbook and assessment, this is a very important one because it's where you're going to do a lot of your formatting, alright? So, first off, let's have a look at the margins, okay? Now, to select a new margin, you click on Margins and it brings a drop-down menu, alright? And that drop-down menu has a bunch of preset margins in there. You can see them there. It also has custom margins. So you click on Custom Margin and it brings up this box here, okay? And this is where you can customize manually the size of your margins. So let's change all of the margins to 1 centimeter. Top, left, bottom, and right. Okay? And you hit OK. Now before I do that, keep an eye on where the text is on the page. Did you see what happened there? The text automatically fit to the new margin positions. So where my margins were 2.4 centimeters or whatever they were beforehand, now they're 1 centimeter. So now my text and everything on my page is now 1 centimeter away from the edge, as opposed to 2.4 or whatever it was beforehand. That is what changing your margins does. And it's nice and easy to change those margins. Again, just margins within your Layout tab. The next thing we're going to have a look at in this tab is the orientation. Okay, so now orientation is how your page looks, okay? Does it go up and down or does it go left and right? Let me show you what I mean, okay? The easiest way to show you is first I'm going to have to change the zoom on my screen, okay? So I need to zoom out. When I zoom out, it means that I'm zooming out of my documents. And then if I were to zoom back in, just clicking on the plus, you can see that I'm zooming back in on my document. That's nice and easy. Now that's the quick way of doing zooms. You can also do it manually, but I quite like just clicking and dragging, or hitting plus or minus to zoom in and zoom out. Okay, so what we've got here is we have a bunch of portrait pages, okay? So a portrait page is one where it's higher than it is wide, okay? So it looks like that. But if I would change the orientation to landscape, the page is now wider than it is high. And that's all it is, okay? A piece of paper standing on top and then on its side. So landscape orientation, portrait orientation. Landscape, portrait. Now how do we change that? That's nice and easy. In our Layout tab, we just click Orientation, Landscape, Portrait. Landscape, Portrait. I also want to quickly have a look at the layout of our paragraphs, right? Now, we have indent. What does that mean? Well, let's play with it. Let's see what it does. it indents and it moves my entire paragraph. Okay? So indent left is distance from the left. Let's try and just highlight one line. It does the whole paragraph. We also have before and after spacing, okay? So for the paragraph, we want the space before a line, okay? So on top of the line to be 6 points, 30 points. And we want the space below it to be a bit smaller. And if we pump it up, we can see that it actually moves everything down between the paragraphs. So you can actually manually change the space between your paragraphs. That's quite handy. And it's something that you're going to be able to, well, going to need to know how to do, because I like to think that 0 point before and 6 point after is really good paragraph spacing. And that's just how you manipulate it. Easy. Alright team, let's have a look at tabs. Tabs are pretty cool. What they do is when you hit the tab key on your keyboard, the text that you had highlighted at the front of the sentence or the front of the line is automatically tabbed inwards. Alright? So tabbing is a really good way of aligning your text if you're wanting to align it manually. Now, you don't just have to use the preset tab that's set up automatically on your computer. What you can do is go up to your ruler on the top of your document, get your mouse, just by single clicking on your ruler. You can see another L got set up there. Let's put another one there. You hit tab on our text, it'll go to the first tab, then the second tab, then the 6 centimeter tab, the third one, alright? So this is a really cool way of aligning your text in the way that you want. Alright, it just gives you a little bit more freedom. Alright team, I want to show you something really quite neat, okay? Now let's say that you have to manipulate some text. I'm going to change this text to Arial and I'm going to make it purple. Okay? Now I've set this text up in this way, but the rest of the text is still what it was before. It's still black and it's still the Open Dyslexic font. Now, let's say I want the rest of my font to match this purple font up here. I could either highlight it and manually go through in my home tab and change all the font and the size and blah blah blah, or what I can do, and this is a handy trick that I do all the time, I highlight the text that I like, that I want everything else to be. Then in my home tab, I hit Format Painter, okay? So Format Painter is it's kind of like a copy and paste, but not with content, but settings, okay? So it's copying the settings that I have on my font, and it's going to paste it onto other font. So then what I can do is I can highlight the other font that I want to change, and it automatically changes to the same text settings. So if I hit Format Painter again, I could scroll down, highlight some more text, and it automatically gives it the same settings. Now, Format Painter is a really powerful tool when you're creating large documents, and then you have to go back and, let's say you get told to change all of your subtitles within the document. Now, you could go and do that automatically, or you could just change the first subheading, okay, make it a bit smaller, let's say. Then you hit Format Painter, highlight the next subheading, and then you keep doing that way, and it saves you a lot of time. Format painting is really quite a handy tool. Alrighty, now let's have a look at a couple of manipulation techniques. Let's say I need to move some stuff around. Let's say I need to move this subheading, storing a document, and I need to move it underneath this text here. Well, that's easy. I could either copy and paste it, so that would be Control C, select where I need it to go, and Control V. Now I've copied and pasted it, and then what I could do is I could just delete that first one. That's one way of moving some text, alright, or a picture, anything you want. I don't have to use the keyboard shortcuts. I could right click, bring up a drop down menu, cut and paste, or copy and paste from there. Alright, now copy means that you're creating a copy of that text. Cut is you're taking away that text, okay, and then you hit right click again and paste, and so it's the same words, but you've moved it just by cutting and pasting it instead of copying and pasting it. That's quite cool. But there's other ways we can move our text as well. We can highlight it, we hold down the left mouse, the left button on the mouse, not the left mouse, and as we're holding it, we can actually drag to where we want it to go. Okay? So hold the left button down on the mouse and drag it, and then release. That's another way of moving it. Deleting is pretty easy. We can either hit backspace, alright, on our keyboard, which is the easiest way to delete something, alright? Or what we could do is just highlight what we want to get rid of and cut it, and it's gone. Easy. I have all this space here where that paragraph and the title were. What I can do with that space is I can actually insert something. Let's say I want to insert a picture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the Insert tab, and this is where I can insert whatever I like, you know, whether it be a new page, a table. I could draw a shape, alright? So I click down Insert Shapes. It'll bring down this whole drop box of just plenty of shapes. Let's say I want to draw a little smiley face. I just hold down the left button on the mouse, and that allows me to insert that shape. But the shape is not what I was wanting, was it? I wanted a picture. So I would go Insert, Pictures, and then what I've got to do is I've got to navigate through my folder structure to find a good shape. A good image, sorry. So I'm going to go into my 111 film, no, I'm going to go into Documents, 111 Observation, and in there I've got a picture. So I double click it and it inserts this picture of my cat. Nice and easy. Inserting pictures, really easy to do. Okay, and then from here we can change the size of the picture. Okay, just by clicking on the little boxes here, the little dots on the edge of the box. Now what I recommend doing is, if you're changing the size of your picture, drag from the corners, okay, because you can see it's still keeping its shape. Whereas if I dragged from the bottom here, it changes the shape and it makes the cat look quite squat or stretched, you know. So always change the size from the corners. Another really handy trick if you're inserting a picture is in the Format tab, okay, when you've got your picture selected, you go to Wrap Text, alright? And what I like to do is I like to put my pictures in front of text. That means that it's easy to move around and it's just easier to position, okay? You could also put it behind text or square, and all of this stuff is actually telling you what's going to happen to that picture in relation to text. So if I go square, what will happen is when I've trying to move it over some text, the text is actually going to wrap around the picture. That can be quite handy. Let's say I'm doing some work, okay, I'm doing some typing, and I accidentally delete something, okay? I accidentally hit Control X and I lose my picture. What do? How do I get that back? Well, lucky for us, we can undo any mistakes that we've made. And we do that by doing this. On the top left-hand side of your screen, next to your little save icon here, that's a floppy disk, you'll see this little arrow here, Control Z, undo. Okay, so you just click it and that undoes your action, and we'll see that the photo is back. Now let's say that we decide we don't want the photo, we want to redo our deletion. Well, all we do is we just click the other arrow, redo cut, and it's gone. So undoing an action, redoing an action, undoing an action, redoing an action. Let's have a look at reviewing your text, alright? Let's say you've finished your document, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that everything is spelt correctly and has proper grammar. That's nice and easy, alright? All you want to do is click your Review tab, check Document, alright? It may also be called Spelling Check or Grammar Check on your word processor. It really just depends on what you're using, but they all do the same thing. They check your spelling and your grammar. So you click it, and what happens is it will come up with your spelling errors. And you can just scroll through your spelling errors. You can change them as they come up, or you can ignore. I'm going to click that, I'll ignore that. Tighter is an actual place. Mr. So spelling and grammar checks are really handy. You can also check to see if a word is spelt correctly by having a look to see if there's that red squiggly line. That red squiggly line means that that word is either spelt incorrectly or it's not a word that the program recognizes. Now, let's say that that's a word that we want the program to recognize. We say, hey, we don't want that to be considered incorrect. You can actually, while spelling or checking your grammar, or you can even just highlight a word, as you highlight it, okay, and you scroll over and you see this down here, add to dictionary and settings. Let's add it to the dictionary, and there you go. You can see that McTutor no longer has the red squiggly line. Now McLearner is highlighted. Let's add that to the dictionary too. There's another really handy thing that we can do in the review tab, and that's change the language, okay? So now, let's say we want to change the language of our entire document. What I can do is hold Control A, that selects everything, alright? I click on language, I go down to language preferences, and it's here that I can pick a new language. I hit this down arrow and I can pick any other language I like. Let's go with Central Kurdish. Alright, we hit add. Also, you can change your language down at the bottom left of your page. You'll see next to your page and your word number, you'll see language here. You click on that and that opens up this box. And this is where you can change your language preference. Let's go Arabic, Tunisia. You hit OK. And that's how you change your language. Alright, let's say we've been told by our boss that we need to stop referring to the tutor in a document, and we need to call the tutor bestie, okay? Now what we could do is we could manually go through and change every time that the word tutor goes in and type in bestie, but there's a good chance that we're going to miss a few. Now what we can actually do is tell Microsoft Word to say, hey, find all instances of the word tutor and replace it with the word bestie. How we do that is we go to find and replace. So the easiest way to do that is go replace, and that brings this box here up. So I'd already highlighted the word tutor, so that word is already in the find, and we want to replace that with bestie. Okay? Now we can either go through and do it individually by going replace, replace, see how that changed there? Or we can just do it all in one go and go replace all. And you go, yep, we made 10 replacements. Okay. So now, instead of tutor, it's bestie. Look at that. Finding and replacing is very handy if you need to make a lot of changes in a document, or let's say you just spelt someone's name wrong, alright? You spelt, let's say, Sharon wrong. You put in the wrong amount of R's. Instead of going through and finding the name Sharon each time, you just find and replace. Easy. Once that's done, you can go File, you can go save as, you can browse. Now, let's say that we want to save this as a new file, okay? So we want to keep the original workbook and also this workbook that has the new changes in it. All we need to do is manipulate the name, how you're going to create it and turn it into a new file. So 2. Then we hit save. And when we bring our folder structure back up, we'll see that there's a new file there now. That's perfect. We've made a copy of that document. Sweet. That's not all we can do though. We can go File, Save As, Browse, and where it says Word document there, we can actually click the down arrow. I'll just rotate it, there we go. Down arrow, and we can actually pick different file types. So we could change this into a PDF document, alright? Now PDFs are really handy document types. They're not really that editable, so if you want to send someone the final version of, let's say, a workbook or an assessment, you could change it to PDF, makes the file size smaller, and it makes it a lot harder to manipulate and change. But then you hit save, and what's going to happen is when you open up your new file structure, we can see the new PDF file. Perfect. Now we're getting towards the end of this film, and before we finish up, I just want to go through some basic screen display options with you, alright? Now what we can do is we can minimize our window and we can maximize it, alright? Now, how we do that is quite easy. On the top right hand of your screen, you're going to see this little line here, alright? Right next to your X that closes. Left click on that and it minimizes your screen. And then when you want your document to be open again, you just have a look at your toolbar down the bottom, okay, and you'll see that there's a little square around the application icon. That means that there's something open. You left click on that and your document is maximized again. We can also make it smaller and maximize it again, okay? So let's say that we're working on a couple of different documents at once and we want to be able to see both at the same time on the screen. You can actually make it smaller. We can do it manually just by clicking on the edge and holding the left key down, the left button down as we move it. And then we just hit the box again up the top and it goes back to being full screen. Easy. In the View tab, what we can do is we can turn our ruler on and off. Okay? The ruler that helped us set up tabs, we can turn that off to give us a little bit more space on the page, just to see what's going on. I personally like to keep the ruler on, but it's good to know how to turn it off if needed. In here, we've also got a way to manipulate a lot of our page layout options, okay? We can ensure that it's showing one page. We can show multiple pages at the same time, just by clicking a button. So one page, multiple page. We can do the zoom. If we click zoom itself, we can actually manually dictate how zoomed we want it and press OK. So that's a really good way of having a lot of control over your zoom. let's say we get a little bit stuck, okay? We need some help. All we have to do is click the Help tab. And here we can find a few different things. We can contact customer support. Okay, so that will actually email a query to somebody from Microsoft. Or we click Help, and that'll just bring up a little dialog box that you type your problem into, and it comes up with a solution. Honestly though, guys, one of the best ways to get help is the internet. If you type your problem in, you're gonna find an answer. Right? YouTube is really good for showing us how to do things on the internet. And there's also forums. Now, forums are really great for people asking questions and people answering with really easy to follow, simple tips. So if you get stuck, select Help here or try online. What we can do is, instead of looking at it normally in a normal view like we are, we can also see how we've actually formatted our paragraphs in our document. We do that by clicking this little dude here, and that shows us where all our formatting, all of our enters, our spaces, everything has been made. This is a really good way of, if you're editing a document, keeping up with how it's been formatted, okay? You can see exactly what you've done and where. Now, let's say we like our document. We think it's done. It's been saved, and now we need to print it out to make a hard copy. We go File, we scroll down to Print, and you'll see this screen, all right? Now, on the screen here, we're going to see our document. This is the print preview, okay? And it shows us what our document is going to look like when it's printed. And we can see that we can actually just scroll through the pages to make sure that it looks good. We can change the number of copies that we want to print out. So let's say I want to print out 3 copies. I can print all of the pages, the current page that I'm on, or I can actually say I only want pages 9 to 11 to print out. We can print out one-sided or double-sided. We can collate, we can change the orientation, so we can go print in portrait or landscape. We can change the size of the paper, so instead of it being A4, we could print in A5 or A3. We can also change whether we're printing in color or in black and white. And when that's all ready to go, you just go and you hit print. And that's it, team. That's the end of this video. So I strongly recommend that you go and have a bit of a play with Microsoft Word, alright? Look at how that you can manipulate your font, your text, alright? Play with making it bold. Make your fonts different. Play with your margins. Play with different tabs, alright? See if you can't change the direction of your tab. Play with bullets. Insert some pictures, alright? Explore the toolbars up the top, okay? See what is actually available in Microsoft Word, because I've barely touched the surface here. Yeah, we didn't really have a look at the review or the view page that much. We touched on a couple of things, but not too much. Mailings we didn't open. References. You know, there's so much stuff here to play with. Just get into it, alright? Have some fun. Practice zooming, using your ruler, maximizing and minimizing your screen. Save a document as a PDF, alright? Create a good folder structure so that it's easy to retrieve files. Okay, keep everything in nicely labeled folders. It will make your life easier in the long run. Alright? I want you to practice some keyboard shortcuts. See what Control B does. What does Control Z do? Control I, Control U, Control S and Control A. See what they do. Have a look online and see what there is to play with, alright? And don't forget your uses of your mouse, alright? So I've been selecting and highlighting different text and images using the left mouse button. The right mouse button I've been using to open up quick menus, and to scroll up and down, I'm lucky because my mouse has a little scrolly bit in the middle, a little wheel that I've been using to scroll up and down. Well, good luck, have fun, and I'll catch you later.